The Impossible Challenge. High Admiral Cthax stood before the gathered representatives of the Galactic Council, their crystalline form gleaming under the Grand Chamber's artificial stars. The massive view screen behind them displayed what appeared to be a simple metal cube, floating serenely in a containment field aboard their flagship. To the untrained eye, it might have seemed unremarkable, just another artifact among millions catalogued by the Council's archaeological teams. But this cube had become the most studied object in known space, and arguably the most dangerous. Honorable representatives, Cthax's voice resonated through the chamber, translated simultaneously into the 100+ languages of the assembled species. For the past 3 centuries, this artifact has resisted every attempt at access. We've lost 17 research teams, 3 space stations, and 1 small moon to failed attempts at opening it. The energy readings suggest it contains technology far beyond our current understanding, technology we desperately need if we're to survive the coming void storm. The gathered aliens shifted uncomfortably in their environmental suits and suspension fields. The void storm, a massive tear in spacetime that threatened to consume their galaxy, had been growing for millennia. Their most advanced models predicted total galactic destruction within 50 years. The latest analysis suggests the cube's security systems operate on principles we cannot comprehend, Cthax continued. Every species in the Council has attempted to unlock it. The hive mind of Proxima tried psychic interfacing and ended up speaking in palindromes for a month. The Silicon Collective attempted quantum resonance. We're still rebuilding that sector of space. Even the Ancient Ones, with their 11-dimensional consciousness, couldn't make sense of it. A murmur of concern rippled through the chamber. If the Ancient Ones had failed, what hope remained? The cube had become their last, desperate chance at survival. However, Cthax's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been excitement. Our deep space sensors have detected a new spacefaring species. They call themselves humans. Their technology is primitive, their lifespan barely a flicker, and their planet sits on the galaxy's unfashionable outer rim. But their approach to problem-solving is unique. The chamber's AI projected images of human history. Stone tools becoming spears, wooden boats growing into starships, all in an evolutionary blink. They achieve the impossible not through superior technology or biology, but through what they call lateral thinking. They see patterns where we see chaos, find solutions where we see only walls. You can't be serious, interrupted Council Elder ZYX, their gas cloud form swirling with indignation. These primitives? They still use chemical rockets. Their bodies are mostly water. They haven't even unified their planet. Cthax's response was interrupted by an urgent communication. The view screen shifted to a live feed from their flagship. The cube was pulsing with an energy signature they'd never seen before. Standing before it was a human female in a simple environment suit, holding what appeared to be an ancient Earth device called a calculator. What is the meaning of this? Elder ZYX demanded. Who authorized human presence aboard our flagship? I didn't, Cthax admitted. That's Dr. Sarah Chen, a human mathematician we've been observing. She apparently smuggled herself aboard disguised as a maintenance drone. She's been studying transmissions about the cube for months and insisted she had a theory. We were going to refuse her access, but... They all watched in stunned silence as Dr. Chen pressed a sequence of numbers on her calculator and held it up to the cube. The ancient artifact, which had resisted the most advanced technology in the galaxy, began to hum. Then, to the astonishment of every being present, it started to solve itself like a puzzle box, rearranging its structure in impossible ways. Impossible, Elder ZYX whispered. How? I believe, Cthax said softly, we're about to find out why the cube's creators left it for a species that still counts on their fingers. The language of numbers. The flagship's observation deck erupted into chaos as the cube continued its impossible transformation. Dr. Chen stood calmly in the center of the storm, her calculator still raised, while around her the galaxy's most advanced beings scrambled to make sense of what they were witnessing. The cube had become a shifting cascade of geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space should allow. "It's not actually that complicated," Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying the tired patience of someone who had explained this same concept to countless undergraduate students. "The cube isn't a container or a weapon. It's a proof." High Admiral Kthak's crystalline form vibrated with confusion. "A proof of what?" "Of intelligence," she replied, tapping another sequence into her calculator. The cube responded by projecting a series of equations into the air, not in any alien script, but in pure mathematics. The beings who created this weren't testing our technology or our strength. They were testing our ability to recognize patterns. The ship's AI struggled to translate the human's explanation into concepts the gathered aliens could understand. "Think about it," Dr. Chen continued, pacing around the shifting cube. "Every spacefaring species develops differently. Some achieve faster-than-light travel through physics, others through biological manipulation, still others through dimensional folding. But mathematics? Mathematics is universal." Elder Zwx's gaseous form condensed with sudden understanding. The cube was waiting for someone who could see. "The elegance of it," Dr. Chen finished. "Your civilizations tried to force it open with power. But look at these sequences, their Fibonacci numbers overlaid with prime factorizations, arranged in a perfect geometric progression. It's not a lock to be broken, it's a conversation to be joined." As if responding to her words, the cube's projections expanded, filling the observation deck with mathematical proofs of increasing complexity. The aliens watched in amazement as Dr. Chen began to solve them, not with advanced technology, but with her simple calculator and the computational power of her human brain. "But why?" Kthaks asked, their crystalline structure refracting the light of the mathematical display. "Why create such an elaborate test?" Dr. Chen's fingers flew across her calculator. "Because of your void storm problem. I've been studying the data you've collected on it. It's not a natural phenomenon, it's a mathematical error in the fabric of spacetime. Someone made a calculation mistake on a cosmic scale, and reality is trying to divide by zero." The observation deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Even the ship's AI seemed to pause its processing. "Are you suggesting," Elder Zwx began carefully, "that the void storm threatening our galaxy is essentially a universal computational error?" "Exactly," Dr. Chen said, her eyes never leaving the flowing equations. "And to fix it, you don't need more power. You need someone who can spot the mistake and correct it. That's what this cube is, it's both a test to find species capable of seeing the error, and an instruction manual for fixing it." As she spoke, the cube's final transformation began. Its surface became a perfect reflection of the void storm itself, but rendered in pure mathematics. Hidden in the swirling equations was a single misplaced decimal point, a tiny error that, propagated across the scale of a galaxy, had become an existential threat. "There," Dr. Chen said softly, pointing to the flaw. "That's where it all went wrong. And that's where we start making it right." The cosmic correction. The next 48 hours aboard the flagship became a blur of activity that would later be described in 100 different ways by 100 different species. The Silicon Collective called it the Great Recalculation. The hive mind of Proxima named it the Symphony of Numbers. Humans would simply call it the Fix. Dr. Chen had transformed the observation deck into what she called a math lab, though to the aliens it looked more like organized chaos. The walls were covered in handwritten equations, the floor strewn with paper printouts, and at the center of it all stood the cube, now serving as a three-dimensional blackboard for the most important calculation in galactic history. "The void storm isn't just growing," she explained to the gathered council representatives, who had all relocated to the flagship to witness the work. "It's solving itself. The universe is like a self-correcting computer, but the correction process is what's tearing space apart." We need to show it a better solution before it finds its own. Working with a team of the galaxy's best mathematicians, or at least those who could grasp her explanatory sketches, Dr. Chen began the painstaking process of crafting a solution. The cube proved invaluable, serving as both a computational aid and a reality testing device. When their calculations were wrong, it showed them why. When they were right, it sang in harmonies that existed beyond normal space. The fascinating thing, she told High Admiral Thax during one of her rare breaks, is that whoever created this cube knew this would happen. They knew that eventually, some species would make a mathematical error so profound it would threaten the galaxy. And they knew that same galaxy would need to find a species capable of spotting computational errors to fix it. But why humans? Thax asked. Your species is so recent. Dr. Chen smiled, taking a sip from her ever-present coffee mug. Because we're used to making mistakes. Every human child learns mathematics by getting things wrong, over and over, until they start seeing the patterns in their errors. We're pattern recognition machines built by millions of years of evolution, and we've turned error correction into an art form. The breakthrough came during the artificial night cycle of the second day. Dr. Chen, running on nothing but coffee and determination, suddenly sat up straight at her workstation. Of course, she whispered. It's not about correcting the error, it's about making the error part of the equation. The cube responded to her revelation, its surface rippling with new patterns. As she explained it to the council, the solution wasn't to fix the cosmic calculation error, but to incorporate it into a larger equation that made it meaningful. The void storm wasn't a mistake to be erased, but a variable to be balanced. Think of it like teaching a child arithmetic, she said, sketching rapidly on her pad. When they make a mistake, you don't just tell them they're wrong. You show them how their mistake can lead them to the right answer. We're going to show the universe how this error is actually part of a more elegant solution. As she spoke, the cube began to pulse with a deep, resonant energy. The void storm, visible on the ship's long-range sensors, started to change its pattern. What had been a chaotic tear in spacetime was beginning to take on a new form, not closing, but transforming into something purposeful, something that strengthened the fabric of space rather than destroying it. It's working, Elder ZYX observed, their gaseous form swirling with excitement. The storm is integrating itself into normal space. Yes, Dr. Chen said, her tired face breaking into a smile. Because now it knows it's not a mistake. It's part of the answer to a question the universe didn't even know it was asking. Ripples through reality. The integration of the void storm sent shockwaves through both spacetime and galactic society. As the cosmic error rewrote itself into a fundamental constant, the universe seemed to shiver with possibilities. The flagship sensors recorded phenomena that defied explanation, stars dancing in mathematical sequences, nebulae arranging themselves into perfect geometric patterns, and space itself humming with what could only be described as contentment. But not everyone was celebrating. Dr. Chen's revelation had triggered a crisis of confidence among the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The ancient ones had retreated into meditation, processing the implications of being outsmarted by a species that still watched cat videos. The Silicon Collective was experiencing what they termed a recursive existential loop, unable to reconcile their technological superiority with their failure to see such a simple solution. You have to understand, Dr. Chen explained to a particularly distressed group of Silicon Collective representatives, technology isn't everything. Sometimes the most elegant solution comes from seeing the problem differently, not from having better tools. High Admiral Thax, who had become something of a champion for human ingenuity among the council, watched as she sketched out her explanation on a paper napkin. But how did your species develop this particular way of thinking? They asked. Necessity and play, she replied, adding a small doodle of a cat to her sketch. Humans have always had to solve problems with limited resources. We couldn't evolve better bodies, so we had to evolve better problem-solving skills. And somewhere along the way, we learn to enjoy the process, to find beauty in elegant solutions. The cube, still floating in its containment field, had begun displaying new patterns. Where before it had shown them the mathematical error in spacetime, now it seemed to be offering something else, blueprints for technologies that merged the precision of advanced alien science with the intuitive leaps of human thinking. I believe, Dr. Chen said, studying the new projections, this was the real purpose of the cube all along. It wasn't just about fixing the void storm. It was about teaching different species to complement each other's strengths. As if confirming her theory, the cube's projections expanded to show possibilities that made even the most advanced alien scientists gasp. Hybrid technologies that combined silicon collective quantum computing with human creative problem solving. Medical treatments that merged ancient one-energy manipulation with human biological adaptability. Faster-than-light drives that used human intuition to navigate paths that pure mathematics couldn't predict. But with these revelations came new challenges. Reports began flowing in from across the galaxy of copycats attempting to replicate Dr. Chen's approach to other ancient artifacts. Not all of them were successful. The Proxima Science Academy had to be evacuated after a particularly enthusiastic researcher tried to solve a mysterious alien puzzle box with a human calculator, resulting in what witnesses described as a localized outbreak of tap-dancing geometry. We need to establish guidelines, Elder ZYX announced during an emergency council session. This human approach to problem solving, it's powerful, but it needs to be understood properly. We can't have everyone running around trying to solve cosmic mysteries with pocket calculators. Dr. Chen, who had been invited to address the council, couldn't help but smile. Actually, she said, that's exactly what we need, but with proper preparation and understanding. The cube showed us that the universe isn't just a set of rules to be followed. It's a conversation to be joined, a puzzle to be solved, and sometimes even a joke to be appreciated. The council chamber erupted into discussion, with various species arguing about the implications of this new paradigm. But through it all, the cube continued its silent display, showing them glimpses of a future where the combination of alien precision and human creativity could unlock the universe's greatest secrets, one elegant solution at a time. The human factor. In the weeks following the Void Storm's integration, the galaxy witnessed an unprecedented cultural shift. Species that had previously dismissed humans as primitive began studying Earth's history with intense interest. The Council's archives were flooded with requests for information about human problem-solving methods, from ancient Greek philosophy to modern debugging techniques. Dr. Chen found herself becoming an unwitting ambassador for human thought processes. She had set up what she called lateral thinking workshops aboard the flagship, teaching alien scientists how to approach problems from unexpected angles. The sessions often led to amusing cultural misunderstandings. No, you don't actually have to use a calculator, she explained to a group of energy beings who had manifested physical forms solely to hold the devices. It's about the approach, not the tool. Sometimes the best solution comes from asking, what if, instead of, why not? The Silicon Collective had taken this lesson to heart in an unexpected way. They had begun incorporating random number generators into their decision-making processes, calling it artificial human intuition. The results were mixed, their efficiency had improved dramatically, but they had also developed an inexplicable fondness for jazz music. High Admiral Thax observed these developments with growing fascination. Your species has catalyzed something remarkable, they told Dr. Chen during one of their now regular discussions. The galaxy was stagnating, each civilization convinced their way was the best. You've shown us that progress often comes from unexpected directions. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The Ancient Ones had emerged from their meditation with troubling questions about the nature of reality itself. If a human with a basic calculator could solve what their 11-dimensional consciousness couldn't, what did that say about their understanding of the universe? That's the beauty of it, Dr. Chen responded when they brought their concerns to her. The universe isn't a hierarchy where more advanced automatically means better. It's more like a puzzle that needs different types of pieces to be complete. The cube, still serving as a central point of study, seemed to support this philosophy. It had begun revealing new layers of information, but interestingly, these revelations only occurred when different species worked together to understand them. Solo attempts at analysis, no matter how technologically advanced, yielded nothing. "It's teaching us collaboration," Dr. Chen observed, watching as a team of human mathematicians worked alongside silicon collective processors and ancient one-consciousness explorers. The cube's creators understood something we're only now beginning to grasp: the universe isn't meant to be understood from a single perspective. This realization led to the establishment of the first Galactic Institute of Hybrid Solutions, a place where different species could combine their unique approaches to problem-solving. The facility, built in orbit around a neutral star system, quickly became known for producing innovations that would have been impossible for any single species to develop alone. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the various civilizations began viewing their own histories. The Silicon Collective discovered that their early evolutionary stages, which they had dismissed as primitive, contained valuable insights about adaptation and creativity. The Ancient Ones began studying their own childhood development, recognizing that their journey to 11-dimensional consciousness had given them unique problem-solving tools they had forgotten how to use. "Humans have given us a great gift," Elder ZYX announced during the inauguration of the Institute. "Not just the solution to the void storm, but a reminder that progress isn't always about advancing in a straight line. Sometimes it's about remembering how to look at the universe with fresh eyes." Dr. Chen, listening to the speech, pulled out her old calculator and smiled. On its display, she had written a simple equation that somehow managed to spell out "Hello Universe" when turned upside down. It was exactly the kind of thing the cube's creators would have appreciated, a reminder that in the grand cosmic scheme, understanding often comes from being willing to look at things from a different angle. Echoes of creation. 6 months after the Void Storm's integration, the cube revealed its most startling secret. It happened during a routine analysis session at the Galactic Institute of Hybrid Solutions, where Dr. Chen was working with a diverse team of researchers. The cube had been displaying its usual mathematical patterns when a human graduate student accidentally spilled coffee near it. The liquid formed a perfect spiral on the floor, and the cube responded with an entirely new set of projections, not equations this time, but what appeared to be historical records encoded in pure mathematics. The images showed the story of the cube's creators, and it was nothing like anyone had expected. "They were like us," Dr. Chen breathed, watching the mathematical reconstruction of an ancient civilization. Not physically, but in how they thought. They were problem solvers, creators, they made mistakes and learned from them. The records showed a species that had evolved not through biological or technological superiority, but through their ability to learn from failure. They had advanced by embracing their imperfections, using them as stepping stones to greater understanding. And when they finally reached a level of development beyond anything the current galaxy could imagine, they didn't abandon their roots, they remembered them. This is why the cube responded to human methods, High Admiral Thax realized, their crystalline form resonating with excitement. The creators knew that eventually, a species would evolve that shared their fundamental approach to understanding the universe. The cube's creators had seeded the galaxy with similar artifacts, each designed to test different aspects of problem-solving ability. But these weren't just tests, they were tutorials, teaching tools left behind by a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all: true wisdom comes not from avoiding mistakes, but from learning to transform them into opportunities. As the cube's revelations continued, it became clear that the Void Storm had been more than just a cosmic error. It was the final exam, a challenge created to identify a species capable of seeing beyond the obvious, of finding harmony in apparent chaos. But where are they now? Elder ZYX asked, their gaseous form swirling with curiosity. These creators who thought so much like humans? The cube's answer came in the form of a simple mathematical proof, one that brought tears to Dr. Chen's eyes when she decoded it. "They're still here," she explained. They didn't leave or die out. They evolved into something else. They became part of the mathematical fabric of the universe itself. And they've been waiting for someone to join their conversation. The implications were staggering. The creators hadn't abandoned the galaxy, they had become its guardians, watching and waiting for species that could understand their message. The void storm, the cube, all of it had been a sophisticated invitation to join a higher level of existence. But with this knowledge came responsibility. The cube's creators had left more than just puzzles, they had left a choice. The galaxy's civilizations could continue on their separate paths, or they could work together to follow in the creator's footsteps, learning to transform their differences into strengths. "We're not ready yet," Dr. Chen announced to the council. But that's exactly the point. The creators weren't showing us a destination, they were showing us a journey. And the first step is learning to embrace our imperfections, to see them as opportunities rather than flaws. The cube pulsed with approval, its patterns shifting to show glimpses of possible futures where the combined creativity of all species led to discoveries beyond imagination. It wasn't just about solving problems anymore. It was about understanding that the greatest advances come not from perfection, but from the beautiful, messy, unpredictable process of learning and growing together. A new equation. The final transformation began not with a bang, but with a question. During a joint session of the Galactic Institute, a young human physicist asked something so simple it had been overlooked by every advanced civilization: what if the universe isn't trying to solve equations? What if it's trying to tell stories? The cube's response was immediate and profound. Its surface erupted with patterns that were neither purely mathematical nor purely narrative, they were both, and something more. The creators had encoded their greatest message in a form that required both logical precision and imaginative understanding to decode. Dr. Chen, working with a team that now included representatives from every major galactic civilization, began to understand the true nature of the cube's purpose. "It's not just a key to higher knowledge," she explained to the assembled council. "It's a template for evolution itself, not biological or technological, but conscious evolution." The creators had discovered that the universe wasn't simply a collection of physical laws and random chances. It was a vast, living equation that wrote itself through the stories of every species that evolved within it. The void storm hadn't been a mistake, it had been the universe trying to write a new chapter, but lacking the proper vocabulary. "Think about it," Dr. Chen said, sketching on her ever-present notepad. "Every civilization here has been trying to understand the universe through their own limited perspective. The Silicon Collective sees everything as data. The Ancient Ones perceive reality through dimensional mathematics. Humans try to find patterns and stories. But the truth encompasses all of these approaches and more." The cube began to change, its surface becoming transparent, revealing layers upon layers of interconnected patterns. Each layer corresponded to a different way of understanding reality: mathematical, intuitive, quantum, narrative, and others that defied classification. Together, they formed something greater than the sum of their parts. "This is the real inheritance the creators left us," High Admiral Thax announced, their crystalline form refracting the cube's light in complex patterns. "Not the power to solve cosmic equations, but the understanding that every perspective, every approach, every species adds another layer to the universe's story." The impact of this revelation rippled through galactic society. The Silicon Collective began incorporating storytelling protocols into their quantum processors. The Ancient Ones started exploring the mathematics of narrative structure. Human scientists learned to express complex equations as interactive stories. Each species found ways to complement and enhance the other's understanding. As if responding to this new harmony of approaches, the cube revealed its final secret. The creators hadn't just ascended to become part of the universe's mathematical fabric, they had become its storytellers, weaving the laws of physics and the tales of civilizations into a grand narrative that was still being written. "And now," Dr. Chen said, holding up her old calculator one last time, "they're inviting us to help write the next chapter." The cube's surface rippled one final time, showing them glimpses of possibilities that merged science and story, mathematics and meaning, technology and intuition. It wasn't an ending, but a beginning, the start of a new kind of evolution that would transform not just individual species, but the very way the universe understood itself. As the council chambers erupted in excited discussion about the path forward, Dr. Chen noticed something amusing. Her calculator, sitting next to the cube, was displaying a simple message: 2 + 2 = fish. The cube seemed to twinkle in response, as if sharing a private joke about the beauty of seeing things differently. The galaxy would never be the same. The void storm had been rewritten into the universe's equation, the cube had shared its secrets, and every civilization had learned that the greatest discoveries come not from having all the answers, but from being willing to ask new questions. Together, they had begun a journey that would lead them not just to the stars, but to a new understanding of reality itself, one equation, one story, one perspective at a time.